Hello class, and today I want to talk to you about something that's very important, conflict. In particular, I want to go and talk to you all about conflict within groups. But before we jump into it, let's figure out what conflict is. And so we all have different types of conflicts that we occur or concur with other people. Now, conflict doesn't feel good, but it can be good. It can be beneficial within a relationship, within groups, at work, and so forth. So let's define what conflict is. Usually, when there's conflict, that means that there's a struggle for something. There at least has to be two people within a conflict. All right, you can conflict with yourself intrapersonally, but what we're talking about here is conflict between two people or more. Now, there's could be incompatible goals, scarce resources, and interference. And this interference could be anything. It could be a third party. It could be resources, for example, not enough time, and so forth. And then last, it's about achieving goals. Sometimes we have conflicting goals. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to what really causes these conflicts, especially conflicts in groups. Now, in groups, we have different aspects that contribute to one another, especially when there's a large group of diverse people. Now, there are differences within groups and people. There are differences in tolerance and risk, and there are differences in power and power struggles. And then a lot of times we also argue over policies or procedures and processes. So we always have to take those into consideration. Now, perception is also important. What I perceive is different than what others perceive. Personality issues always come into factor, especially if there are differing personalities. Knowledge base, I know more than the other person, or that person knows more than me. And then culture, there are differences in the way we approach certain things. And then power and status, what we talked about just a second ago, is also important. People join groups for different reasons, and power and status can sometimes become a conflicting aspect. And then last but not least, again, I mentioned this already a little bit, procedural expectations. So how to do things and what's expected of that. Now, there are reactions to these, what we call inequities. It could be persuasion, it could be seduction, it could be verbal aggression, and then last, and hopefully not, the physical action or altercation. Now, today I'm not going to dive into how we can resolve these. This is just a short snippet regarding what conflict is and the types of them. But we can also talk a little bit about the misconceptions or the myths of conflicts. And so one is conflict should be avoided at all costs. Two, all conflicts occur because people do not understand one another. And then all conflicts can be resolved. Now, these are misconceptions. Where it says conflict should be avoided at all costs, not necessarily. Again, conflict can be good, and we'll talk about that in a later chapter, and later module. And then all conflicts can be resolved. No, they can't. There's some things that we just cannot resolve, whether it's due to personality, a procedure, knowledge. We can't always solve that inner working, inner communication conflict. So just keep those in mind. Three things I do want to quickly just go over: the types of conflict. The first one is a pseudo conflict. Second one is simple conflict, and then lastly is ego conflict. Now let's start off with the pseudo conflict. Will be brief. It's basically people misunderstanding one another. That's a pseudo conflict. We misunderstand one another, whether it be we're not paying attention, we're not listening, not enough information. The second one is simple conflict. This is when people just disagree about issues, and issues are small and large. To some person, an issue that might be very important; to another, it might be something very minute. And last but not least, we'll call it ego conflict, and this is when personalities clash. And in one of our later chapters, or in this chapter in particular, we will talk about how to resolve certain issues. But the three types of conflict, which is presented, pseudo, simple, and ego, are usually what we can sort of put our conflicts in the types. So again, this is just a quick synopsis of conflict, the different types of conflict, and so forth. We'll dig into it more, and I look forward to resolving some of these conflicts when they arise. Thank you.